You see nothing funny, Roy, in the way that you are staring at me, holding up a finger, telling me that we are starting our segment, and I am looking at more of your mouth than I ever get to see because you're wearing vampire's teeth. But when you're giving me the professional signal that we are starting our broadcast, you don't know or remember that you're wearing these vampire fangs that are hanging out of your mouth, correct? So you are in the role you've been in for 20 years, but this happens to all of you on Halloween, right? You forget you're in the costume?
Yeah. No, I remember.
Absolutely.
This doesn't happen to people? You don't think people are looking at you strange sometimes because you've forgotten you're wearing a crazy wig or something?
We've established that you're the kinky type and you're often in costume. I guess I'm not in costume enough to be so comfortable that I forget.
Because you don't serve any of your grid of death punishment.
No, I've only lost twice. Did you call out Jesus in a wrestling promo? I didn't see that.
Nope. I went to my homeboy's birthday party. It was around Halloween, and I dressed up as Batman, and there was a lot of gangsters there, so we was watching the football. Around the end of the party, I was in the middle of a whole bunch of gangsters with a Batman suit on, and I was so embarrassed, and I felt so lame, man. Salute to my homeboy for playing me like this.
Chris Cody, who is rushing in from somewhere late, writes in to me via text, I don't believe Stugotz would kill for Josh Allen. This is something Stugotz said that if Chris Cody had been here, he would have called him on it at the spot.
Right.
How do you guys imagine? I want you guys to imagine Stugotz as a Jets fan. He now has to kill somebody in order to get Josh Allen as his quarterback. How would he go about doing this? How do you imagine this exercise would go? Who is the person? It would be me, wouldn't it?
No, it'd be Zach Wilson, probably.
You killed Zach Wilson.
You'd be in the top 5, but I mean, it wouldn't be.
I think the NFL is rightfully knee-jerk because one game, that's a 17th of your season. The sample size is skewed because it's a smaller sample altogether. But the reaction to Josh Allen's performance on Monday was, toxic, rightfully. Not enough credit being given to Vance Joseph. This is a defense that gave 70 points up to the Miami Dolphins. And over the last month, they've totally changed what they're doing. So credit to him. But I started trying to figure out where the tipping point was because when he was a hair's breadth away from the Super Bowl, which actually wasn't even in the conference championship game against Kansas City, I think the general feeling was he's a top 3 quarterback. And that's changed some. And the one that I thought was the spiciest comp, I asked a Cowboy fan straight up, coming after a great Dak Prescott performance, who would you rather have, Dak Prescott or Josh Allen?
It's ridiculous.
They said Dak Prescott.
Right. Ask him after a bad one, though. Right.
Who turns it over plenty as well, and it's his fatal flaw as well. The thing that we were discussing yesterday, Mike, is whether you can actually be someone, because they have changed, Stugotz, the rules. Aaron Rodgers changed this. That position can't turn the ball over. And everything about winning in the margins, where you see how close these games are, Stugotz, there ain't no greater advantage than that one. You keep getting the ball back, if you get it's worth more than even the other quarterback being great. Because if I keep taking the ball back and I keep reducing the winning margins, then all of a sudden that becomes the equivalent of a 70-yard pass interference call, Stugotz. Everyone's trying to get these 5 yards. Baker Mayfielding their way down the field, trying to get 7 yards, trying to get to 3rd and 2, but having the football. The other quarterback gives you the football. It's such a terrible flaw. It's the worst one he can have. It's worse than inconsistency. It's worse than he's not that good, but he's okay. It's what Josh Allen has, I believe, is something that keeps anyone who's ever been great at that position now from being great. You could throw 25 interceptions before. You cannot do it that way anymore. You will be Jameis Winston. You will become a backup quarterback.
Dan, he's not going to become a backup quarterback. I understand what you're saying. He needs to eliminate the turnovers. We all understand that. I will remind you that Patrick Mahomes has 8 interceptions this year, like Josh Allen has 11. The Bills should have won that game despite the turnovers,
Josh
Dan.
Allen fumbles too, though, Stugotz.
I know.
He fumbles also.
Because he's running the ball a lot, or at least he was before they had an actual running game.
But don't just say, I know, when you're giving me 11 and 8 as the numbers. Since 2018, Stugotz, like, I'm telling you, there's something here in the sport. Mike just gave you the Mina Kimes numbers. This Bills offense, when he doesn't turn it over, totally overwhelming, can win the Super Bowl. But that's not the Bills offense. What the Bills offense is, it does turn it over because their quarterback turns it over. He is reckless, he is fun, he is swaggering, but it's a huge flaw that makes me tilt all of the game's math in a way that I'm like, how can you be great if that's on your resume?
To your point, Dan, he does lead the league in fumbles. He's actually only fumbled 4 times, but he's lost 3 of them. Interestingly enough, Tua has fumbled 8 times this season.
Crazy.
And he has only lost 2, so a little bit of luck there for Tua.
If the Dolphins right now got a call from the Bills and said, hey, we'll send you Josh Allen, you send us Tua, what do you think?
No, you got to look at the cap numbers. Right now, you go with Tua, even though you're going to have to pay Tua. But the Josh Allen contract
I understand what you're doing, Stugotz. We all fall in love with that at the quarterback position.
Well, Dan,
who doesn't want?
But I'm coming at it.
He's a galloping guy that's hard to tackle, that is more of an athlete than almost everyone he's playing, and he's got the most giant arm in the league.
The craziest part about Josh Allen when it comes to evaluation is no one said that coming out of college.
Right.
That he's this galloping athlete that is basically Cam Newton, not the book on him.
But understand where I'm coming from. I'm coming at this as a Jet fan. I'm coming at this as a guy whose best quarterback over the last 20 years has been Mark Sanchez. Like, that's how I'm viewing this. And so, yes, would I kill to have Josh Allen? Probably not. I wouldn't kill. But I would love to have Josh Allen as my quarterback because he's great.
Even when he turns the ball over, there's still plenty to like about his game.
Yeah, like you said, it's not talked about enough, the fumble handoff to James Cook and in the crunch time, you know what I mean? And
yes.
He just has this habit. He has to get it out of his system some kind of way.
JuJu, the other one that's not his fault is he put the ball right in Gabe Davis's hands. Gabe Davis does that occasionally.
Gabriel Butterfingers Davis, may I add.
He's a bad wide receiver.
And that's another thing. We have no receivers outside of Stephon Diggs. This is elephant in the room.
Yeah,
I love the Buffalo
Bills
Bills. I love the Philadelphia Eagles. I bleed green and
Okay,
I bleed blue.
The only reason I ask on we is because Peyton Manning caught flack from his brother Eli because he was on the Broncos. He was going us, and Eli was yelling at him. It's been 8 years, and Peyton's got 2 us's. So you have 2 we's, and Jessica has 9 we's.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, wait, yo, I don't know how many we's she got. I got 1, but when the Buffalo Bills get a receiving core
You just said you had 2 we's.
Freudian slip. Whenever the Buffalo Bills get some talent outside of Josh Allen, outside of Stephon Diggs on the defensive side, we will survive. But now we are goofy. Who are you throwing the ball to?
All right, well, you just said something, and this I don't think bodes well as Ken Dorsey gets fired. JuJu just said he's got to get this out of his system. That is not a cure for much of anything. Your analysis is not incorrect, but I don't know what he's got. You said it's the truth that Brian Cashman says of Stanton. This is a part of his game. Injuries are a part of his game. Right. This is a part of his system.
Right. But it wasn't that 1 year. I mean.
That's right. That 1 year he had the Tua thing where he fumbles 8 times and he only loses 2 of them.
I don't think you're going to be able to keep Diggs. This offseason was a bit tumultuous with Stephon Diggs. And, look, they're always restructuring contracts in the NFL. Josh Allen just entering this year restructured his contract so they can keep Diggs on the books for this season. But next year, his base salary does go up to $23 million, and it's a $47 million cap hit when he's only an $18 million cap hit this year. Again, the NFL salary cap is a myth, and teams always find ways around this. But you're not going to get more talent around Josh Allen. You're going to get more Gabe Davises of the world.
We have done way too much Bills talk, and I can tell because she can be accurate in terms of measurements on weather. When Jessica fades off into land where she's tracking jets or looking up stories on what's happening at Panera Bread, we're about 5 minutes too long this week into Bills talk, and she has drifted off. Is it the Panera Bread story? Is it the Jets you're tracking?
I've been trying to find the NFL.com Josh Allen draft comparison because they always do like the player comps on that site. I mean, a lot of sites do it, but I can only find Kentucky Josh Allen, not Wyoming Josh Allen. And because Mike, was your point that the analysis was that he wasn't good on his feet coming out of college, because I think that was
No,
one of the
what Mike
things.
Ryan was saying is we didn't get a whole lot of what an amazing athlete this is on Josh Allen. I think that
the comps that I saw coming out of college, even though he's shorter, was Brock Osweiler when he's closer to Cam Newton. I didn't see a lot of Josh Allen as Cam Newton. I saw a lot of Josh Allen as the next Brock Osweiler.
all of us were a little bit surprised because of the way Josh Allen was analyzed at Wyoming, and we hadn't seen him play. We did not realize, oh, wait a minute, this is a Justin Herbert type. This isn't just a big quarterback. This is a quarterback who, like Trevor Lawrence, will run away from your defense. That's not. All of us were surprised the first time that he ran 60 yards with the football. All of us were like, oh, there's some Lamar Jackson there, but he's got 60 more pounds of muscle. It's why you get infatuated with him. But, Jessica, you have been obsessed with the Panera Bread story.
Well, I've actually. Can we go back to flight tracking for a second? There's been a lot of. It's flight tracking season, Dan. There's been a lot to track the last week, and I saw recently a screenshot. It's hard on Twitter now to verify what's real and what someone has photoshopped, because there was a Photoshop thing of one of Jamie Chadwell's tweets yesterday that got debunked fairly quickly, but a lot of people fell for it. And I did see a screenshot of a flight tracking of a private jet going from College Station to Eugene, which people were, like they're trying to hire Dan Lanning, they're flying their private jet. And I still haven't been able to find it, because in this Twitter era, it's just so easy to see, it's a blogger for the site, maybe it's not, maybe it's like a fake everyone's a ball sack to me, Dan. Yeah. And so I've been trying to track this flight for a while.
To me too, Jessica.
Not to me.
To me too. I want T-shirts made. Everyone's a ball sack. I am wandering through the labyrinth that is social media, and at every turn, I turn to my right, there's a ball sack. I got to be careful. To my left, there's a ball sack. I'm scared of all of it.
That's how I feel at work, too. I have my eyes on College Station, though. If something big happens, mark my words.
Okay,
I've got my eye on their private airport.
Who was on the plane?
Presumably, like their athletic director, but also it could just be some rich guy.
I'm not totally sure, Stugotz, how it is that as a country or as a globe, we arrived as being anti-expertise. We like to undercut experts. We like to think we know more than experts. The person who's on with us now is an expert on the things that he researches and reports and writes about. He's done the oral history of 9/11. He's written about the JFK assassination. He was a Pulitzer Prize finalist for the history of Watergate, and now he has spent 2 decades researching and reporting on U.S. intelligence, national security, and the military. Garrett Graff is with us. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your expertise. You write in the book, your definitive new book, UFO, the inside story of the U.S. government's search for alien life here and out there, that the government's UFO cover-up has primarily been a cover-up motivated not by knowledge, but of ignorance. You have spent 2 decades reporting this kind of stuff. What do we know? What does the government know?
So I got interested in this subject in December 2020. Listeners may remember there's been sort of this sea change in conversations around UFOs, what the government now calls UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomenon. Since 2017, the New York Times and Politico had this blockbuster series of reporting in 2017 about how the Pentagon was reporting UAP sightings and had actually a sort of secret study program into UAPs. And then in December 2020, John Brennan, who had just wrapped up nearly a decade as CIA director and White House Homeland Security advisor, gave an interview where he said, effectively, there's some stuff up there flying around. We don't know what it is. It puzzles us. And I think we may find it constitutes something like a new form of life. That interview made me sit up and pay attention, because John Brennan's a serious guy, and he'd been, in the intelligence community for 30 years. There can't be that many things that puzzle him anymore. And if this is a subject that he's interested in, that he's puzzled by, that felt to me like a good story or a good topic for a book.
What do you feel like you learned?
So I think there are a couple of things. So the book tries to both trace the military's hunt for UFOs here and the evolving science and astronomy of the search for extraterrestrial intelligence out there. So I think I end up with three broad conclusions, which I'm happy to sort of break down and talk more about. But the first is the math is on the side of the aliens. Over the last decade, astronomers have come to understand the scope and scale of the universe, and it's pretty convincing to me that there's going to be life elsewhere, and probably actually a lot of life elsewhere across the universe. It's also probably too far away for us to really know, too far away for us to have meaningful contact with. At the same time, there is a phenomenon here on Earth that we don't know what it is. And it could be interesting and meaningful and important to solve that phenomenon, even if the answer isn't extraterrestrial visitors. And I think at the end of the day, John Brennan's comment is probably actually true. The government doesn't know what these things are. There are layers to an actual ongoing government cover-up about its meaningful understanding of UFOs, but I think they mostly have to do with a cloak of secrecy around the government's own secret flight research programs and our understanding of adversary technology, basically sort of Chinese drones, Russian drones, and that the core of the UAP phenomenon, the government doesn't have any clue what it actually is.
Garrett, I've got to tell you, somebody set off, and this is not me, okay? I'm betraying my staff here. I heard an alarm go off in the other room that suggested, somebody said it was their kook meter going off. And Billy back there is whispering in my ear while you're talking, I don't believe this person has blinked the entire interview. So your information is exceptional, but people here are accusing you
possible insider info.
Just blink once in a while.
Being an alien, you're being an alien, and you've been sent here to send this disinformation into the planet to scare us.
In fairness, at first we thought he was abducted, but now we think he's an alien.
Mm-hmm. Still haven't blinked.
Can you deny what they're saying?
So I think the math, as I said, is on the side of the aliens being too far away for us to really know. That the scale of the universe is such that, you go back 20 years, we had never seen a planet outside of our solar system. Now we understand that almost every star in the universe probably has planets, and that there might be a sextillion habitable planets across the universe. That's a billion trillion planets that sort of fall into the habitable zone as we understand it in terms of, the possibility of water, the right temperature. Most of that is so far away from us that we will never be able to have meaningful contact with it. And then you get into some really profound and poignant conversations around this topic. Because to me, like the heart of this book, the heart of the story of our public fascination with UFOs, it's not really about aliens at all. It is this question of, are humans alone? And to me, this is one of the 3 or 4 sort of most profound questions of human consciousness and existence. That's sort of up there with is there a God, and what happens to us after death? And that so much of this story ends up being sort of about our own cosmic consciousness and understanding of our place in the universe.
Should we be scared?
So it's a good question. Not of aliens. I don't think, as I said, I don't think that UFOs and UAPs are going to turn out to be alien visitors in the end. What I think it's going to end up happening is we're going to discover that UAPs are effectively 4 different categories of stuff. One is adversary technology being tested against us. We know that some chunk of it is this, because one of the things that the Pentagon has said in recent years is that one of the things it has discovered as part of its renewed UAP research is a heretofore unknown Chinese trans-medium drone. That's a drone that comes out of the water and transitions to flight. The second category is basically going to be what we found with the Chinese spy balloon in February. There's a bunch of weird junk floating around up there in the sky that we're not paying attention to on a daily basis. And it turns out if you set the NORAD radars sort of slightly differently, we end up picking up a lot of like weather balloons and trash that then we send up the world's most advanced fighters to shoot down with $250,000 missiles. And you know what we shot down in February? An Illinois weather hobbyist club's weather balloon over Lake Huron. And then you get into sort of the two weirder categories that I think we're going to turn out to be the answer to at least most of UAPs. One is emerging atmospheric, meteorological, and astronomical phenomenon that we don't really understand yet. We should be humble about how much of the world we still don't understand and how much weirder it is than what we actually understand it to be. And then the last category is the actually weird stuff. And this is the physics that we don't yet understand. We think that we understand the world much better than we actually do. But Harvard astronomy chair Avi Loeb, who's a big proponent of the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, he points out that when the world's oldest person died in January of this year, she was a French nun, 118 years old. In her lifetime, humans had learned everything that we have learned about relativity and quantum physics. And the question to me is, what are we going to learn about physics in the next human lifetime? What are we going to learn in 500 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years if our civilization lasts that long?
Garrett, I've got to ask you some questions, rat-a-tat-tat, okay? Because you've dedicated your life, you've turned it over to a pretty epic search here on what it is you're trying to do. The book is UFO, the inside story of the U.S. government search for alien life here and out there. You keep calling them UAPs, but I see gratuitously behind you. And a number of books that look like they're all the same book. It doesn't say UAP there. It says UFO because you're capitalizing on the salacious aspects of this. We still don't know for sure that you are human life form.
Or if you blink.
or well, because of that, because of the blinking. Okay. But we've got a number of rat-a-tat questions here, okay? So if you could, in 30 seconds or less, which one sighting did you find worthy of your journalistic time?
The most interesting sightings are people like Lonnie Zamora, 1964 Socorro, New Mexico local police officer. He comes across a craft in the desert with two figures next to it that take off into the sky. He is shaken up, terrified by this encounter. There are other officers who respond and see him within minutes, see that he is shaken up. And there are good witnesses like this over the years who are people who have no reason to report an encounter and actually a lot to lose in terms of credibility if they come forward with a UFO sighting. And so to me, answering what happened to people like Lonnie Zamora is the reason we should be paying more attention to this mystery.
We talked to a Navy pilot, claims to have seen an unidentified phenomenon go from zero to supersonic mid-air. Aren't we supposed to believe whistleblowers from our military?
Yes, and I think we should. And I think one of the things that bothers me as a citizen and a taxpayer in researching this subject is that the military, the Navy, doesn't seem more concerned about the fact that it has its personnel coming back from missions saying, hey, I'm encountering technology that I don't know what it is.
The Pentagon seems to be taking this stuff more seriously. Why? When did that shift happen?
The shift has happened over the last couple of years, again, as you've had this new reporting come out and you've had serious people talking seriously about this subject. There is something real here. That's not me saying that I think that it's aliens, but there's something unsolved that's worth the military's attention, worth the government's attention.
Government plots, X-Files, how seriously do you take that sort of stuff?
My general line on government conspiracy theories is that they, after 2 decades of covering government, conspiracies presuppose a level of competence, forethought, and planning that is not on display in the rest of the work that the government does.
Garrett, a couple more here, rat-a-tat-tat. Do you have any validation for Bob Lazar and his story?
So Bob Lazar is sort of a particular challenge. You see a lot of these people over the years who sort of come forward with what in ufology is called FOAF tales, friend of a friend tales, sort of people coming forward with sort of secondhand knowledge about the types of things that they have seen. And I think we need to be really dubious of the FOAF tales of ufology. What we have not seen is people coming forward with firsthand evidence, documented evidence, of an actual meaningful government conspiracy or cover-up about alien bodies or alien craft.
Glad you said that. What about Varginha, Brazil?
Well, so I think part of the challenge is, I just don't think we have seen really anyone come forward with the hard evidence that we would want before we begin to think that the government is covering up meaningful knowledge of UFOs here. That this is a subject that I think the mystery is out there, and I really just don't think that the government knows.
I don't know. The government seemed to be there very quickly when the guy with the alien took him to the hospital and then all of a sudden died mysteriously after 2 weeks and nobody's talked to his family. I don't know about that one.
Again, when you dive back into the history across 80 years, it's much more a story of the government failing to show up at all or showing up a week or two late than it is sort of the idea that the government has some advanced Men in Black team that they are able to deploy on a moment's notice.
What about that Mexican guy that had the alien carcass that may or may not have been a cake?
I think on the spectrum, I would put that much closer to cake than alien.
Thank you.
What a great sentence.
Garrett, thank you for being on with us. So it's friend of a friend tales that we have to make FOAF tales.
FOAF tales.
Okay.
Yep.
Ufology.
All right, just to be clear, why didn't you call your book UAP?
Because to me, a big part of this story is the popular culture fascination with UFOs. When I sort of went back through this, what you see is this really intense feedback cycle over 80 years of UFOs actually sort of lodging in the public consciousness, driving government attention, driving public fascination, and then, of course, Hollywood and pop culture sort of telling us what alien contact would be like.
Garrett, before we let you go here, again, the name of the book is UFO, the inside story of the U.S. government's search for alien life here and out there. When you dedicate your life to something like this grand in scale, my guess is it becomes a giant obsession, and wherever you're out in public, it becomes something of a conversation point. What percentage of people, when you start talking to them about this, say, get away from me, you kook, you're crazy? Or do 100% of them get illuminated and say, oh my God, I had no idea?
Much closer to the 100% of the people get illuminated. My experience is when I talk about this, everyone laughs initially, and then they lean in ready to talk about it.
That's a good lean in from the look. We still don't know if he's human, but that looked like
His
a human.
Wikipedia also doesn't have a birth date on it. It just says he may be 41, maybe 42.
We don't know. We just know that Garrett is here with us, and his book is UFO, the inside story of the U.S. government's search for alien life here.
Just know he's here
and
with
out
us.
there. We know he's here with us. We don't know what's out there, and we know that he leaned in kind of like a human there, but didn't blink. Didn't blink. Didn't blink.